The arena was alive with sound metal clanking, banners waving, 100 alien voices roaring in excitement. Commander Riza stood at the center of the battlefield, the red sand beneath her boots stained with the blood of yesterday's challengers. She was tall, powerful, and covered in battle scars. Her skin was a faint silver blue, and her long white hair was braided like a whip. Her armor gleamed with the seal of the Voltran Empire, a symbol of undefeated strength. She looked up at the crowds. Alien nobles, warriors, and even royal students had come from other planets to witness her fights. Every week, someone dared to challenge her for glory. None had lasted more than a minute. Riza raised her voice so all could hear. Another day, another fool. Where is today's warrior? A general stepped forward from the gate and cleared his throat. Today's fighter is a human. A sudden silence fell across the Colosseum. Then laughter exploded. A human? Are they serious? That's an insult, not a challenger. Riza didn't laugh. She smirked. Fine, she said, slamming her spear into the ground. Let's make this fun. She raised one finger into the air. If a pathetic human ever beats me, she shouted, her voice echoing across the battlefield, I'll marry him on the spot. The crowd screamed in disbelief, laughter, and shock. Some cheered. Others booed. Riza didn't care. No human had ever even landed a hit on her. Then the gate opened, and a single man stepped out. He wasn't wearing armor. Just a black shirt, worn cargo pants, and dusty boots. No helmet, no weapons, no team. His hands were empty. He looked normal, short brown hair, calm eyes. A scar across one cheek, like a story no one had ever asked him to tell. Riza frowned. This wasn't a soldier. This wasn't even a fighter. The man walked casually across the arena floor, then stopped just 10 feet from her. He didn't raise his fists. He didn't bow. He just looked her straight in the eyes. What is this? She barked. Some joke from your planet? He finally spoke. His voice was quiet. No joke. Riza twirled her spear once, fast as lightning. You're unarmed. I don't need a weapon, he said simply. That made her pause, for just a second. Then she charged. Like a bullet of metal and rage, Riza sprinted forward. Her spear pointed straight for his chest. The ground shook under her speed. The crowd stood up, cheering for the kill. But the spear missed. It didn't miss because Riza failed. It missed because he moved effortlessly, just a sidestep, like he saw it coming before she even began. She spun and attacked again. This time she swung wide. The blade sliced through the air where his head should have been. But again, he wasn't there. The crowd gasped. Riza skidded to a stop, breathing harder than she liked to admit. Her silver eyes narrowed. The human still hadn't attacked. He was just waiting. Watching. She rushed again, this time faster, sharper. Her blade cut patterns in the air. Each strike would have killed any trained soldier. He dodged them all. No shield, no armor, not a scratch. Fight back. She growled, frustrated. The human's voice was calm. I am. And finally he moved toward her. Riza readied herself. No human could strike fast enough to break her defense. But he didn't punch. He didn't kick. He tapped the side of her spear just once with 2 fingers. And the weapon spun from her grip and landed 5 feet away. The arena went silent again. Commander. Riza stared at her empty hands for the first time in 10 years. Someone had disarmed her. And it was a human. The crowd didn't cheer. They didn't know how to react. Some noblemen stood frozen. A Voltran prince dropped his goblet. One of Riza's former opponents looked like he'd seen a ghost. She stepped back once, then again. What are you? She whispered. The human looked up at the sky, then back at her. His answer was quiet. Just someone you shouldn't have dared to laugh at. The wind shifted in the arena, but no one breathed. Commander Riza stared at her hands, still trembling from the shock. Her spear lay in the sand behind her like a fallen crown dot. No one had ever made her drop it. Not even during full war training. Not even during the trial of blood when she fought blindfolded. Yet here she stood, empty-handed. Disarmed by a human who hadn't even raised his voice. The silence was broken by a slow, deliberate clap. One of the alien generals, old, wrinkled, missing an eye, stood in the viewing box, clapping. His voice echoed. "That wasn't luck," he said. "That was technique," the crowd murmured. Some agreed. Others shook their heads. Riza's face was tight with fury, but it wasn't just anger. Something deeper had begun to burn inside her. Doubt. She lunged forward, trying to land a heavy punch. A clean, no-rules strike straight to the face. Her fist flew with all the strength of her warrior bloodline. But again, he moved. Just a tiny shift to the side. Her fist missed, and her body overextended. He didn't counter. He just let her fall. Forward into her own momentum. She stumbled, off balance. "Furious, who are you?" she hissed. The human looked around like he hadn't heard her. His eyes scanned the arena stands. Then he spoke. "Strange. I thought this was a challenge. But it feels like I'm dodging a dance." The audience laughed nervously. This time, not at him, but with him. Riza's fists clenched. "You mock the Empire." "No," he interrupted softly. "I mock you." That was too much. With a battle cry that shook the stands, she sprinted toward him again, twisting midair into a downward heel kick that could shatter bone. She'd used that move to break a warbot's neck during the siege of Tralax V. The human stepped back half a foot, and she landed on empty air. Her boot crashed into the sand, missing him by inches. He didn't even flinch. This time, the crowd wasn't silent. They cheered, but it wasn't for her. A group of nobles and warlords sat behind energy shields. One leaned forward. "That human," he said. "He moves like he's reading her." Another added, "No fear, no hesitation. That's not training, that's experience." A third whispered, "He must be one of them." Riza stepped back, her chest rising and falling. Sweat dripped from her neck to her collarbone. She had fought for 12 years, from palace arenas to real war fronts, and no opponent had ever stayed this calm. But this man? He stood like he was waiting for a shuttle ride. Hands in pockets. Barefoot in spirit, he finally spoke again. "You're strong," he said, voice low. "But strength isn't everything." Riza spat on the ground. "Spare me your Earth wisdom." He tilted his head. "I'm not from Earth." "What?" "I was born in the Black Zone, near the edge of the Wormgrave Nebula." Her eyes narrowed. That place wasn't on any trade route. It wasn't mapped. It was legend. "A cursed zone. No one survives there," she said slowly. "I did," he answered. "A boy running through smoke as monstrous creatures chase him. A human child hiding beneath wreckage as alien warlords march past. A blood-soaked teenage boy dragging an injured girl with silver skin to a hidden bunker, the girl crying. And then forgetting him." Riza blinked. Something tickled her mind like a memory trying to return. Something from long ago. "You look," she began, then shook her head. "No, that's impossible." The human only gave a small smile. She charged again. No patterns this time. Number. Planned attacks. Just raw rage and instinct. For the first time, he raised his hand and caught her wrist mid-punch. Not. Blocked. Caught. Her strength slammed into his arm and stopped. The crowd screamed. She stared at him. Their faces were inches apart now. Her arm refused to move. "I could hurt you," she whispered. He looked at her calmly. "Then do it." She didn't, because she couldn't. Her breath slowed. His hand on her wrist wasn't tight. It was gentle. Something inside her chest flickered, something she didn't recognize. She whispered one word. "Your name?" He let go of her wrist and walked away, slowly toward the edge of the arena. As he stepped into the exit gate, he said, without turning back, You knew me once. But back then, you cried when I left. She stood frozen, her mouth slightly open. The crowd erupted, but her ears heard nothing, because now she remembered. The night after the duel, the arena lights dimmed, but Riza's mind stayed sharp. She sat alone in her private war chamber, her armor laid out beside her like the pieces of a broken puzzle. Her hand still tingled where he had touched her. It wasn't the touch that bothered her, it was the calm. No fear. No hate. Just peace. She didn't like it. For hours she replayed the moment in her head. The dodge, the disarm. The way he caught her wrist without effort. She had trained her entire life for war, for pride, for legacy. But this human, whoever he was, had broken every rhythm she trusted and done so like it meant nothing to him. A soft beep echoed in the chamber. Someone was at her door. Enter, she said coldly. An old advisor stepped in. Slow and careful, his gray skin marked with burn scars from wars long past. He held a hologram in his hand, glowing red. You asked me to find his records. He sighed. Show me. The hologram flickered to life. A profile appeared, but it was nearly empty. Name unknown. Age estimated late 20s. Origin human, outer colonies. No government tag. No military registration. No family. She frowned. That's impossible. The old man shook his head. That's what worries me. She looked closer. A few words had been scratched in manually. By someone from the Galactic Intelligence Records. Void. Survivor. Black Zone escapee. Unclassified human. Threat. Her blood ran cold. She had heard whispers in the barracks as a child. Legends of the void areas in space where no maps existed. Where creatures lived that didn't fear armies, and where even empires went silent. No one returned from there. No one except him. Why would a man like that fight me? She whispered. The advisor watched her carefully. Maybe he didn't come to win. Riza's eyes flashed with confusion. Then why enter the arena? To remind you. She didn't answer. Her fingers clenched. Somewhere in her memory, a buried moment pushed itself forward, a battle long ago. A young warrior girl, surrounded by fire. A boy dragging her out of the smoke. His face was blurred, but his voice soft, human echoed in her mind. Stay low. Don't cry. I'll carry you. Her eyes widened. No. It couldn't be. She had buried that memory with the dead. She stood up fast, armor forgotten, and rushed out of the chamber. The hallways twisted around her, cold and unfamiliar, even though she had ruled them for years. Her boots slammed against the floor. She needed to see him again. Needed to ask him, face to face. The guards stopped her at the prison gate. He's not here, one said. What? He vanished. Just walked out after the match. No trace. Security footage is gone. Gone, the guard nodded. Erased. She didn't speak. She only turned and walked away. But her heart was racing. Far away. Beyond the reach of her empire, the human sat on the edge of a cliff. The stars above him cold and endless. He watched a small mechanical device project, a picture, a photo of her. Years younger, covered in ash, holding onto his arm. He smiled sadly. I told you I'd come back. He pocketed the photo and looked out into the dark. She had become strong. She had become feared. But the girl he had once saved was still in there, somewhere beneath the armor and pride. He just had to wake her up. And now she remembered. Back in her quarters, Riza stood still before the mirror. Her armor felt heavier now, not because of shame, not because of defeat, but because, for the first time, she wasn't sure who she was without it. And for the first time since she was a child, she whispered a name she hadn't spoken in years. Jason? But no one answered. Only silence. And in that silence, her heart beat louder than war drums. 2 days passed. Reza hadn't trained. She hadn't fought. She hadn't spoken to anyone, not even the generals demanding answers. She simply sat at her window, staring at the stars. Every night she saw his face, the calm eyes, the voice that spoke without fear, the name she had whispered in secret. Jason. She didn't know if it was truly him, but her bones did. Somewhere deep inside her, a forgotten part of her heart knew. It remembered the fire, the panic, the small human boy who dragged her across rubble while her own soldiers ran. She was just a girl then. And he saved her. Now he had returned, not to fight, not for revenge, but for something else. The question burned in her mind. Why now? That morning, a loud knock broke her thoughts. One of her royal scouts stood outside, sweating and pale. "Commander Riza," he said, voice shaking. "There's something you must see." She followed him through the halls. They walked past training grounds, hangars, and guard posts. Every soldier they passed fell silent. Some looked confused. Some afraid. They reached the grand hall. It had been vandalized. No alarms. No camera footage. But on the white stone wall, something had been carved deep and clear. 7 simple words. "I remember. Do you, Riza of Fire?" She stepped forward slowly. Her legs froze. Her breath caught. She had only been called that name once by a frightened human boy trying to calm her as he carried her out of burning wreckage. Riza of Fire. No one else knew that name, and no one dared carve into imperial walls unless they wanted war. She turned to the scout. "When was this found?" "This morning, before the sun." "He was here," she whispered, but what shook her more was the second line hidden in the corner, etched in smaller, rougher letters. "You promised me a smile when I came back." She hadn't remembered that part. Not until now. She had said it, as a scared girl. "If you come back, I'll smile, I swear." Now the shame hit her like a blow. She hadn't smiled. She had mocked him, laughed at him, threatened him, and still he didn't hate her. Somewhere below the palace, far from light, Jason moved through the city's underworld. He passed beggars, machines, and merchants who didn't care for faces. He asked questions. He paid quietly. He didn't draw attention. He wasn't here to fight her. He was here because something bigger was coming. And Riza was in the middle of it. He had heard the rumors in the darker channels of space. Something was wrong with the Voltran Empire. Ships were disappearing, children vanishing, and whispers spoke of a plan called Project Red Cage. He didn't understand it all. Not yet, but he knew one thing: if it touched her, he wouldn't let it, even if she didn't remember why. That night, Riza stood on the palace roof alone, her cloak billowing in the cold wind. She stared down at the city lights, wondering where he was hiding, wondering why he didn't stay, why he left her hanging between fury and longing. Then, something caught her eye, a shadow moving across the nearby rooftop. She reached for her blade, but stopped. The figure stepped into moonlight. It was him. Jason. No words, just the silence between them. She didn't move, he didn't run, and slowly, she stepped forward until only a few feet separated them. "You were here," she said quietly. He nodded. "I waited for the smile." Her throat tightened. "You caught me off guard. That wasn't fair. You challenged the universe." "I just answered." She stared at him, her voice almost a whisper. "Why did you come back?" He took a breath. "Because something's coming, Riza. Something you haven't seen yet. And I came to protect the one person I owe my life to." "I don't need protection," she said. But he looked at her, not as a warrior, but as the girl he once carried. "I know," he said, "but I do." Before she could speak again, the air buzzed with sudden red light. The alarm towers flared. Across the sky, warships ignited in flame. Explosions echoed in the distance. Her communicator screamed with voices. "Commander, we're under attack. Internal sabotage. Multiple ships down." Riza turned back to him, eyes wide. "You knew?" He nodded once. "They're coming for you first." And in the distance, above the clouds, something massive began to descend unseen by most. Like a predator with no shape. This wasn't about a duel anymore. This was a war she didn't see coming. But he had, and he was ready. The night sky had turned red. Flames bloomed across the upper city as Riza ran through the palace corridors with her command team following close behind. The alarms howled like dying beasts. Half the systems were offline. The air defense grid had been jammed from the inside. The Empire wasn't being attacked by an outside enemy. They were being betrayed. Riza reached the command room, slammed her palm on the override, and barked out, "Give me status." A young officer's voice cracked with panic. Explosions at the lower docks. Someone blew the fuel lines. 4 destroyers grounded. Escape paths are blocked. Riza's jaw clenched. By who? Another voice spoke quietly. We don't know. But they moved like they trained here, Voltron style. That silence, the kind that's heavier than noise, fell across the room. Her own people. Jason had warned her. She turned to him now. He stood at the edge of the room, hands folded behind his back like he didn't belong. Like he wasn't supposed to be standing among generals. But no one questioned him anymore. Not after what he did in the arena. Not after he predicted this. Riza pointed to the map. What do they want? Jason stared at the red blinking markers. They're not here to destroy you, not yet. Then what? They want you taken alive. Riza narrowed her eyes. Why? Jason looked at her for a long second before answering. Because you carry something they need. Riza shook her head. That's impossible. I've given the Empire everything. I have nothing left to offer. Jason stepped forward, his voice low and steady. Not to the Empire. To someone darker, something older. She froze. He spoke. Again, they're running something beneath this city. Something called Project Red Cage. I heard whispers about it before I arrived. They're taking certain royal-blooded children. Cloning, warping, remaking them, turning them into weapons. Riza's face paled. Jason's voice lowered. And they need your DNA to finish it. The room fell completely silent. Even the machines seemed to stop breathing. Riza didn't speak. Not right away. Her thoughts moved too fast. Her father had spoken of hidden projects. Her mother had disappeared when she was 10, and no one gave her a straight answer. Her uncle had vanished mid-flight 5 years ago. The Empire always told her it was war. But now everything felt like a lie. Suddenly, the main door exploded inward. Smoke filled the chamber. Soldiers poured in. Voltron soldiers, faces cold, eyes empty. Jason pulled Riza behind a console. They're not here to negotiate, he said. She didn't ask questions. She drew her blade and charged. The fight wasn't clean. Sparks lit the chamber as steel clashed with steel. Riza moved like fire. She took down 3 soldiers in seconds. But something was wrong. The men didn't react like normal. No cries, no fear, no hesitation. Their movements were stiff, too perfect. They're not human, Jason said. They've been modified. One of them grabbed Riza's arm, twisted it. She cried out, but before the soldier could finish the move, Jason appeared behind him and drove a stolen blade into the soldier's neck. The body fell. Sparks flew from its eyes. Cybernetic. A hybrid unit. She looked at Jason. Blood on his shirt. You weren't supposed to be this fast. Jason gave a small, sad smile. I told you I was raised in hell. They ran through burning halls. Past ruined archives and fallen banners. Soldiers behind them, machines in front of them. Every level of the palace was collapsing inward. The old empire was being erased, and something new, something crueler, was taking its place. Jason led her into a sealed hangar, where a single small shuttle remained old, rusted, barely flying. This is your plan? She asked, eyes wide. It's not the ship, he said. It's the pilot. They climbed in. The engine screamed as the shuttle lifted, coughing smoke. Gunfire chased them through the sky. Reza manned the rear turret. Jason flew like he had stolen ships before, because he had died as they broke through the upper atmosphere. A blast rocked the hull. The shuttle tipped sideways, sparks flying across the console. Reza grabbed his arm. "We're hit," Jason gritted his teeth. "Not deep. We're still flying." She looked at him as the clouds gave way to stars. For a second, the chaos behind them faded. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. He didn't look at her. "Because I made you a promise when we were kids. You just forgot." "I didn't forget," she whispered. "I buried it." He smiled. "Well, I came back to dig it up." The stars stretched into motion, and behind them, the Empire fell. The stars outside the window blurred into blue streaks as the shuttle entered deep warp. Reza sat in silence, staring at the glowing controls. Her chest armor was scorched, her braid was half burned, and blood had dried on her shoulder butt. She didn't feel any of it. Jason sat across from her, quietly fixing a damaged console with nothing but a pocket tool and a cracked glove dot. She finally spoke. "Where are we going?" "Someplace they won't look," he said, not glancing up. "A world where machines can't trace us. No satellites, no trackers, just wind and dirt. I didn't know such a place existed." He looked at her now. "It's not on maps. But it's real." Reza leaned back, eyes closing for just a second. Her whole life had been order, battle, and honor. Now she was sitting in a rusted ship beside a human fugitive. She once laughed at running from her own army. She looked at him. "Why didn't you kill me in the arena?" Jason tightened the bolt on the panel before answering. "Because I didn't come to win. I came to see if you remembered." "Remembered what?" "That not every human is weak," she exhaled slowly. "No," she whispered, "they're not." He looked at her, then really looked. "You were the first person I ever saved. You cried the whole time I carried you. I didn't even know your name, but when you smiled before I left, it stayed with me. That smile gave me a reason to survive." Reza didn't reply right away. Her eyes dropped to her shaking hands. "You saved me again tonight," she said. "But I didn't smile." "You don't have to," Jason said gently. "Not yet." They landed 2 hours later on a dry, forgotten moon orbiting a dead planet. The surface was cracked. Wind howled through black canyons. The stars above looked sharp and too close. They stepped outside the ship. Jason handed her a cloak. "You'll need this." She took it without a word. The air was cold, dry, and smelled like metal dust. "What is this place?" she asked. "A scrapyard of old worlds. The war didn't come here. Nothing ever did." Reza walked beside him as they climbed a hill of ancient starship bones. Broken hulls stretched in every direction. The skeletons of lost machines, Voltron, human, and alien all rusted together in silence. It was a graveyard, and strangely peaceful. They reached the top of a ridge. Below them stood a hidden bunker, nearly invisible beneath old wreckage. Jason pressed a code into a small panel. The metal door groaned open. Inside was warmth, tools, a bed, a few crates of supplies. Nothing grand, but it was safe. And it was his. Reza walked slowly around the room. Her fingers touched the wall where someone had etched marks, lines scratched over time. "How long have you stayed here?" "Too long," he said. She looked back at him. "Then why keep it?" Jason picked up a faded datapad and tossed it to her. She opened the file. Dozens of redacted documents flickered across the screen. One name repeated. Project Red Cage. Reza read in silence. DNA harvesting, selective cloning, emotional suppression, child experiments, controlled breeding. The words made her sick. One file showed her own genetic profile, copied and tagged. "You were right," she said coldly. "They need me for it." Jason nodded. "And now they'll burn whole cities to get you back." "Then we fight," she said. No, he replied. She stared at him. No, we can't fight yet. Not here, not now. They'd crush us in hours. Riza's voice rose. Then what? We run? No, Jason said firmly. We train. We prepare. We take back your name, not just your blade. When we strike, it won't be for survival. It'll be for something bigger. For what? He walked to a corner of the room and pulled back a cover. Underneath was a war suit, unlike anything she had seen. Human design, but alien tech fused into it. Fast, silent, deadly. He looked at her. For freedom, he said. For the people. You swore to protect, even the ones your empire left behind. Riza stepped forward, her hands brushing the edge of the armor. She didn't speak, but in that moment, something shifted. Not in her mind, not in her heart. She was no longer running, and maybe, just maybe, she wasn't alone anymore. 3 weeks passed. Every day, Riza trained beneath shattered starship bones, her cloak whipping in the desert wind. She no longer wore her commander's armor. It had been burned, buried, left behind with the version of her that served an empire. Now dead to her, Jason trained beside her. Silent, fast, focused. He taught her things Voltron war schools never did: how to move without being seen, how to listen beyond the noise, how to fight not for glory, but for something greater. She taught him too. She showed him how to control the blade of a Voltron war staff, how to use her native martial forms with more precision than brute strength. Together, they became something neither of them had ever been alone. Not just soldiers, not just survivors. They became a bond the Empire never planned for. One morning, as the twin suns rose low across the scrapyard sky, a transmission cracked across their stolen console. A public broadcast. Val Tren High Council had issued a new order. Commander Riza is to be captured alive, a traitor to the throne. Any who aid her will be executed. She is no longer Voltron. She is nothing. Riza listened without blinking. When it ended, she stood up slowly. I'm ready, she said. Jason didn't argue. That night, they boarded a new ship, one Jason had repaired in secret under the sand. Smaller, sleeker, faster than any patrol ship in the quadrant. Riza stepped inside it like it was a sword, and when the engine lit, it felt like war drums. They returned to the stars. The strike happened faster than any sensor could. REGISTER, a Voltron data center exploded in the outer ring. Seconds later, encrypted files vanished into space. Then a second target. A clone facility on the moon of Varn collapsed in flames. Then a third. In just 2 days, 6 classified research stations fell. No survivors. No warnings, just fire, smoke, and a symbol burned into the walls. A single line through a crown. The rebels began whispering. They called it the mark of the forgotten commander. Riza never showed her face, but Jason watched her every night in the cockpit. Her jaw clenched, eyes glowing under the ship's red light. He didn't ask her to stop, because this was her war now, and he was here to see it through. On the 7th night, they returned to the city where it all began. The imperial capital, burning lights, steel towers, sky guards with orders to kill. They didn't sneak in. They landed right in the heart of the throne plaza. The moment they stepped out, alarms screamed across the sky. Hundreds of soldiers appeared from every direction, but Riza didn't move. She stepped forward and unwrapped her cloak. She wore nothing but her war staff on her back and a scar on her cheek. The soldiers hesitated. Some recognized her. Others didn't believe the rumors were real until they saw the man standing beside her. Jason raised his hand slowly, then dropped a small orb to the ground. A pulse of energy shattered every weapon in a 100-meter radius. The crowd stepped back, afraid. Riza spoke then, clear, cold, and loud. Your empire tried to erase me. You used me, lied to me, built weapons from my blood. Her voice grew stronger. I am not here to take back my title. I'm here to end the system that gave it to me. One soldier dropped his rifle, then another. Within seconds, half the square lowered their weapons. Some saluted her, some simply walked away, but none attacked. Above them, the imperial banner flickered and fell. Later that night, as the fires died and the silence returned, Jason and Reza stood on the roof of the palace that once imprisoned her. The stars were quiet again. Reza looked at him, eyes soft but unsure. So what now? Jason smiled faintly. Now you smile. She blinked. Then, for the first time since they were children, since that burning day he carried her from the ruins, she smiled. Not the smile of a warrior, not of a queen, but of someone finally free. Jason looked at her and nodded. That's the one I remembered. She punched him lightly in the shoulder. Don't get used to it. But she didn't stop smiling, and for the first time in her life, Reza felt like more than a weapon. She felt human, even if she wasn't.